Well, what a great day, and football recruiting has certainly changed. We think the early signing period has been a great addition that the college football coaches have embraced. Everybody handles it differently. Our goal at the beginning of the year was to set out and probably assign between 23 and 24 guys. That number may increase up to 24 to 25 depending on some attrition. And so we set a couple benchmarks. Recruiting cycles started certainly actually right after signing date, and so a couple people that I think are really important to acknowledge in this class. First of all, our Director of Recruiting, Justin Mesa, who's going to come up and add some comments, and then Ian McGrew, who works in our recruiting office. Also want to say thanks to our assistant coaches who labored really hard, and their wives, spouses who kept the homes fire burning when all these coaches are gone for a great deal of time. But we're really excited about this class. 18 players is about where we wanted to be. Sometimes you try to hit a mark one way or the other. I think if any coach says that they signed everybody they wanted to, they would be less than honest and probably could maybe move to Washington, D.C. We bang, bang. We really set a couple targets out, which you'll look at the class and you'll see it's fairly evenly divided between offense and defense. I think it's important for us to recognize that there are some needs that we have, but we're certainly in a different place than we were 5 years ago. We're just trying to make as many hits as we could. There are certainly some areas where we still need to find a couple players, but what we've always felt like, it's always better to want something that you don't have than have something that you don't want. And so we have a line where we talk about when a guy's above the line, and we certainly have gone out and recruited those guys. So we're certainly excited about this class. What I'm going to do is turn it over to Justin. He's going to go through the class, and I'm going to come up after he goes through the class, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Justin. So Justin, come on up.
Well, I think we should go ahead and get started with the big guys up front on the offensive side of the football. And we'll start out with Latrell Bible. Latrell Bible is from Washburn, Minnesota. He's a big boy now. What we initially liked about him when Coach Began saw him out in the spring and identified him early was his ability to come off the ball with quicks. He's a strong young man, powerful, plays with a great motor, played both ways, was definitely a leader on the team, came on his official visit with his coach, and his coach just raved about the type of kid that he was. We saw his leadership capabilities and really feel comfortable with him being one of the leaders on our offensive line for years to come. So that's Latrell Bible. Next guy we'll turn to is the tackle from Texas, Capel, Texas. I hope I got that right, Coach Bath. Well, Sean, thank you, appreciate it. Jack is a big human being. Really long arms, kind of the prototypical tackle, what you're looking for. Really athletic. Again, tough, physical, aggressive. His tape stood out in his ability to get to the second level, especially on the backside of blocks. Just recently came on his official visit with his dad. What was huge for him in recruiting was going to be fit, and that's something that we look for in all our guys, especially here in Laramie, Wyoming, is which guys are going to fit and be able to go through this process for 4 to 5 years. And so at the end of his visit, something that he expressed to us was this was the right fit for him. So we're really excited. Exceptional student, intelligent man. So again, a good leader for years to come on that offensive line. Next individual is going to be Carlos Harrison, from Carlsbad in San Diego area in California. This is a good example of a young man being identified as a prospect and continuing to get better throughout his senior year. Again, another large individual who moves really well in space, and that's what caught the eye of Coach Cooper and of Coach Fuchs as we continue to watch him through his senior year. And another guy that was on a visit this past weekend, really enjoyed being around him, light personality, and again, the athleticism for this young man has stood out. So those are three really interesting and exciting guys that we're going to add to our offensive line this upcoming year. Next, we'll move to the wide receiver class. Devon Jennings is the first from Channelview High School in Houston, Texas. Devon is more of a prototypical Z wide receiver in the two-back system, which is going to fit really, really well for Coach Vigen and our offensive system moving forward. He's a guy that we identified early. Coach Grant saw him in the spring, liked what he saw athletically, and he continued to progress throughout his senior year. What you can tell as you watch the film is that this guy actually has a really good foundation of tools. And you see how he knows how to work against press. And the more and more that we watch him, the ability to go up and make plays, as you just saw, make contested catches, which is always something that we're looking for in our wide receivers, started to show up a little bit more and more outside of those tools that he had. So really excited about Devon. Next wide receiver is Alex Brown. Alex Brown is from Klein Collins, again down in the Houston area. Really long guy. Now this guy probably out of anybody that we watched this year has exceptional hands. This guy catches the ball really, really naturally. He has the ability to stretch the field. Again, another guy that can go up and make contested catches. But again, I'm going to go back to this guy and say that his ability to catch the football naturally is what really stood out to us, and it stands out on the film above a lot of people that we watch at the wide receiver position. Next guy is Isaiah Nair from Lamar High School in Arlington, Texas. He's got a little trio of wide receivers from down in Texas. And this guy, I'm going to give Coach Bath a lot of credit. He identified him at a camp down in Texas in the summer. Really, really good looking size. Ran a 4.5 40 at the camp. And as we continue to watch him throughout his senior year, he really, out of everybody else that we watched this year, got better his senior year. And you can see on the film here is his ability to go up and make contested catches when people are, on his hip or on his back. He has great body control. And again, the size and speed ratio is something that's very unique. Really an under-the-radar guy, and we're excited to have him and really, really lucky to have him. We'll move over to the H-back position type guys. Treyton Welch is the first guy up. He's from Buffalo, Minnesota. This is a guy that Coach Vigen identified really early in the process. Coming into his senior year, we knew that this was a guy that we might want to really pull the trigger on quickly. He shows up, he makes plays, has a great ability to run, has good body control. Again, another guy that catches the ball really, really well. We watched his first 2 games and knew that this was a guy that we had to have. Comes from a really good family, one of the best players in Minnesota, and we're really excited and lucky to have him there. Next guy up is Mr. Wyoming, Parker Christianson. And so every year we're going to identify the best guy in Wyoming and take him. And this is the guy that Coach Hazelton identified going into his senior year. We knew Parker was the guy that we wanted. We wanted to test him a little bit in camp and see what he was made of. He came to camp, ran really well, moved around in the drills really well. We put him on the offensive side of the ball, tested him, again, in one-on-ones and in 7-on-7 situations, and he performed really well. So before the end of the camp, we knew that this was our guy, and he committed really early on in the process. Solid family, exceptional student, and we're looking for this guy to be a cornerstone of our leadership of our program for years to come. We'll move over to the defensive side of the ball now with the defensive ends, and the first guy we'll talk about is Devon Harris from Big Lake, Minnesota. Again, a guy that we identified really early in the process. Coach Vigen doing a really good job out there. This guy has really good length. The most exceptional thing that he does is come off the ball with speed and quickness. And so he is going to be our pass rusher. And so quarterbacks are going to have to be looking out for this guy and finding out where he's lining up. And offensive coordinators are going to have to account for where this guy is at. He's a really good athlete. He'll line up on the offensive side of the ball. He has good body control. He's got good hands. And so he's just one of those athletic defensive ends, long athletic defensive ends that we've seen here for the past 4 years that have done a really good job and been really productive here for the Cowboys on the defensive side of the ball. Next guy is Jalen Pate from Chicago, Illinois, Lane Tech Institute there. This is a guy that we're going to give a lot of credit to Coach Dicker. He wasn't on our radar in the beginning, kind of flew under the radar, and Coach Dicker continuing to recruit and dig discovered him in a bye week, got into the school, developed a relationship with the young man, developed a relationship with his parents. He came out on a visit during the season, liked what we had to offer. He's an intelligent young man, comes from a good family, plays with aggressiveness, plays with physicality, comes off the ball well, runs well, chases the ball well, has a really good motor. And actually for him, we challenged him to improve in a few things during the year, and we saw that. And so being coachable is something that we look for as well. And so he's been able to show us that he's capable of that, and we're really excited to add him to the team. Next guy is going to be the defensive tackle, Naftali Moi, Big Naf. He's a yes coach, no coach kind of guy. Big credit to Coach Haug here. This guy didn't have a lot of snaps going into his junior year. He missed junior year with an injury. Coach Haug saw him in the spring and identified him as a potential guy. And so we, hey, Coach Haug, where's his junior year film? And there was not much, but we turn on his senior year film and you see him being dominant, gets out of his stance really well, strong hands, aggressive, quick and explosive out of the stance, comes from a great family, and again, not a lot of film on this guy, but he's going to be dominant. He's going to be a disruptive force on the inside for us, so that's Naf. Move over to the secondary now. Before we start talking about the secondary, you've seen some guys be really, really productive here, and so we target our secondary. It's guys got to be intelligent, smart football players, and this is what this guy is, Kiante Clinton. He's, in addition to his athleticism, this guy is a sharp, intelligent football player, and so we identified him at a camp in the Northwest, moved around really well, ran a good time. Coach Dickert saw him in person and knew exactly that this was the guy that we needed. Had him in during his official visit, answered the questions well, was attentive, and we know that this is a guy that's going to be able to come in and I don't know if those two guys that are leaving us can be replaced, but we're optimistic that this is one of the guys that can do that with his athleticism and his intelligence. The next guy is Jerome Cooper. This is a guy that was identified by Coach Richardson in the spring. An under-the-radar guy, comes from Locke High School in Los Angeles. This is a program that's had a council football 2 years in the recent past because of numbers, but he stuck it out. He's one of those guys that didn't transfer to a bigger school, and we kind of like that. Anyways, we saw him at a camp down in Southern California. I thought his athleticism was exceptional. It was a guy that we wanted to target. We stayed on. We saw him in person. Coach Richardson developed a relationship, and a guy that really flew under the radar. He's going to be your no-star kind of guy, but we are fired up about this guy. You see the physicality on tape. You see the suddenness. He's got great ball skills, plays both ways, and he's a leader for his team that actually went to the state regionals in California. So really excited to have him. Next guy up is going to be a guy that plays our nickel position, a position that was perfected by Jalen Ortiz and Tyler Hall the last few years. Actually played at the same school as Tyler Hall. When Allen was a freshman, Tyler Hall was a senior at Sarah High School. Anyway, transferred to Culver City. In most circles, this guy's going to be regarded as being undersized. But for us, his competitiveness, his athleticism, his desire to be great is what attracted us to him. We saw him at a camp. He was going up against the top players at that camp, was really competitive. Coach Bohl saw him and said, this is the guy that's going to fit. We got to add this guy to our defense. He's a Cowboy. And once he knew that he was a Cowboy, he's never let up on that. Really excited to have Allen join us. Easton Gibbs, linebacker from Temecula Valley High School. This guy was the guy that we had as our second commit of the year. He's a Cowboy true and true. He came up early in the summer, saw it, loved it, been committed to us ever since. Has been a really solid guy, one of those guys you never have to worry about in recruiting. He came from a program who didn't win a single game the previous year, became the leader, jumped in, played quarterback, and never complained about that. And so he played the previous year as a defensive position, but this year, whatever his team needed for the success, they actually made the playoffs, won a playoff game, and so really excited to have him. Another guy that we saw in person at camp. Coach Cooper identified him in the spring. Another guy that we saw in person and said we have to have this guy on our football team. Next linebacker would be Isaiah Abdullah from Los Angeles Wilson High School. Again, this is not a program that would typically produce Division I football athletes, but this guy is long, he's athletic, plays multiple positions. Coach Richardson identified him in the spring. We watched him play throughout his senior year. Again, another guy that developed and fit in our philosophy of watching guys their senior year throughout their senior year. So definitely a guy that's gotten better throughout his senior year. Defensive staff watched him in the middle and knew he was a guy that could fit in our defense. Moving on to the cornerback position is Caleb Roberson. Caleb Roberson is an exceptional athlete with great speed. He's the California state champ in the 300-meter hurdles. Now, he transferred over to St. Louis and Cardinal Ritter High School. He's signing. He's going back to California to go back and defend his title. He's a really, really good athlete, really good coverage skills, good ball skills. You see him going both ways. Played for a really good team in St. Louis, and came out here early on in the official visit process. Liked it again. Knew that this was a place that he wanted to be, and we wanted him. So excited about Caleb. Last guy here, but not least, is Jordan Murray from Murrieta Valley High School. Jordan, I think you can see, you're going to be able to see here on the film, is a really big-time playmaker. He plays a lot of different positions at his school. He returns kicks, returns punts, plays wide receiver, makes big plays at wide receiver, and that was the one thing that we saw off film. We were actually watching somebody else, and his play jumped off the film. Coach Cooper developed a relationship with him. Coach Richardson also developed a relationship with him. They worked really, really well together in bringing this kid in. He came in here again, saw it, felt like this was the right place for him. He's the right fit, and we're excited to be able to use this guy at corner, okay, but also in the special teams game and see what he can do, and maybe he could give us a spark on that end.